Congratulations! You have purchased the truly remarkable Janome Mylock 634D serger. The Mylock trims, seams and overcasts in one easy step, cutting your work time in half and giving all your garments that truly professional finish. This video will show you how to use your Mylock and covers the latest serging techniques and optional serging attachments which will make all your fashion and craft sewing easy. Switch the machine on by pressing the power switch located on the right-hand side of the machine. The light will turn on. To thread your Mylock, first extend the thread guide bar to its highest position. Unfold the spool base and place good quality sewing thread onto the spool pins. If you're using small spools, remove the spool holder from the spool pin and put the spool caps on top of the spools of thread. This allows the thread to wind off evenly. Raise the presser foot. This allows the thread to be inserted easily between the tension discs when threading. Slide the looper cover to the right and pull it open. Threading works from right to left, threading firstly the lower looper, then the upper looper, the right needle, and finally the left needle. There is a convenient threading chart for you to follow inside the looper cover. When threading the lower looper, the pre-tension slider must be in the left position for standard serging, and the changeable thread guide must be set in the highest position. Take the thread from the front right spool pin and, following the green threading diagram, draw the thread through the right-hand hole marked in green on the thread guide bar from back to front. By holding the end of the thread and twisting, it will become firm and easy to control. Using the tweezers supplied, insert the thread through the left hole of the thread guide plate from back to front, then over the top and back through the right hole from back to front. Lead the thread towards you and pass it into the tension assembly and down into the slot. Make sure that the thread is correctly inserted between the tension discs by holding both ends of the thread and tugging it gently. Pass the thread through the right side of the looper thread guide, then pull it into the changeable thread guide, next through the looper thread take-up lever, and then through the first lower looper thread guide. By rotating the balance wheel towards you, the lower looper will move to its extreme right position. Push up the first lower looper thread guide. When you do this, the second and third looper thread guides will automatically move up to make it easier to reach them. Pass the thread through the second lower looper guide and then through the third lower looper guide. Turn the balance wheel until the lower looper reappears from under the needle plate. Pass the thread through the hole in the lower looper using your tweezers and pull to the back. Now, taking the thread from the right rear spool pin, follow the red threading diagram. Draw the thread through the hole marked in red on the thread guide bar from back to front. Insert the thread through the left hole on the thread guide plate from back to front, then over the top and back through the right hole. Lead the thread towards you and pass it into the tension assembly and down into the slot. Again, make sure that the thread is correctly inserted between the tension discs. Turn the balance wheel towards you until the upper looper comes to the middle point of its travel. Unhook the thread of the lower looper from the upper looper. Pass the thread through the left side of the thread guide, through the first upper looper thread guide, and then through the upper looper thread take-up lever. Next, you should pass the thread through the second upper looper thread guide and through the hole in the upper looper. To thread the right-hand needle on your Mylock, take the thread from the front left spool pin and follow the blue threading diagram. Turn the balance wheel towards you until the needles are in the highest position. Draw the thread through the thread guide bar. Insert the thread through the left hole of the thread guide plate from back to front, then over the top and back through the right hole. Pass the thread between the tension discs and down into the slot, making sure the thread is correctly positioned. Pass the thread under the first front cover thread guide and under the take-up lever cover from right to left. Guide the thread over the final front cover thread guide. Insert the thread into the right slot of the guide plate and hook it around the needle bar thread guide from left to right. Pass it through the eye of the right-hand needle from front to back. To thread the left-hand needle, take the thread from the rear left spool pin and follow the orange threading diagram. Draw the thread through the thread guide bar. Insert the thread through the left-hand hole of the thread guide plate from back to front and then over the top and back through the right hole. Pass the thread between the tension discs, once again making sure the thread is correctly positioned. Slide the thread under the take-up lever cover from right to left. Guide the thread over the final front cover thread guide. Insert the thread into the left slot of the guide plate and hook it around the needle bar guide from left to right. Pass it through the eye of the left-hand needle from front to back. Set all 4 thread tension dials at 3. Adjustment to the thread tension may be required depending on the type of fabric and thread being used. Now that you've successfully threaded your mylock, place all the threads under the presser foot and to the left. Lower the presser foot and close the looper cover. Holding all the threads, start to sew slowly, allowing the threads to form a chain. To sew a seam, insert the fabric under the toe of the foot and start to sew. It's not necessary to raise the foot unless you're using very thick fabric. It's important to note that the seam line is where the left-hand needle enters the fabric, not where the blades cut the excess away. When you get to the end of a seam, keep the foot control depressed and continue sewing, pulling the fabric out to the rear of the serger. This is called chaining off. Cut the thread with the thread cutter located on the left of the needle bar. On some fabrics, loose loops at the beginning and the end of the seam tend to unravel. To backstitch at the beginning of the seam, ensure there's about 5 centimeters or 2 inches of chain behind the needle. Place the fabric under the presser foot, sew a few stitches and stop. Lift the presser foot and place the thread chain over the seam line and continue sewing over the thread chain. This cuts off the excess. To secure the end of the seam, stitch to the end of the fabric, lift the presser foot and turn your work over towards you without pulling on the threads. Place the fabric back under the presser foot. Sew back along the seam for about 3 to 4 centimeters or 1½ inches. Run the stitching off the end of the fabric and cut the excess thread away. A very simple method of securing your seams is to separate the thread ends and knot them together. To unlock the thread chain, turn the balance wheel away from you 1 full turn. This will release the chain. Pull the thread through for about 6 inches and cut. Knot the ends together. A quick and easy secured seam. To sew an inside corner, make a 1 centimeter or 3/8 inch cut diagonally into the corner of the fabric. Sew along the seam line. Before you get to the corner, stop with the needle in the fabric. Pull the fabric so that the cutting line becomes straight. Continue sewing. When finished, the pleat will disappear and the fabric will return to its original shape. To alter the stitch length, turn the stitch length dial located on the right-hand side of the machine. A lower number will give a shorter stitch length, which is suitable for finer fabrics. A higher number will give a longer stitch length, suitable for heavier fabrics. Position R is for rolled and narrow hems. To adjust the cutting width, open the looper and side covers and set the upper knife to the down position. When the width is too narrow, turn the cutting width adjusting dial clockwise. This will move the lower knife to the right, increasing the cutting width. When the width is too wide, turn the cutting width adjusting dial counterclockwise. This will move the lower knife to the left, reducing the cutting width. The model 634D is equipped with a differential feed mechanism which is designed to overcome normal serging problems. The regulating dial is located under the stitch length dial on the right of the machine. Lightweight fabrics have a tendency to contract, causing seams to pucker. When sewing a lightweight fabric, set the differential feed dial between 1 and 0.5. The front feed dog feeds less fabric under the presser foot than the rear feed dog. This creates a stretching effect which eliminates puckering. Knitted fabrics have a tendency to stretch along the sewn edge, causing the seam to wave. To sew a seam on a knitted fabric, set the differential feed dial between 1 and 2.25. The front feed dog feeds more fabric than the rear feed dog does. This creates an easing effect which gives you a straight, smooth finish. A rolled hem can add that professional look to your sewing. Use it on table linens, children's wear, swimwear, and much more. To sew a rolled hem, first open the looper and side covers. Disengage the cutting blade by pushing in the blade knob and turning it towards you until the blade locks in its lowest position. Whilst pushing in the cutting width dial, slide the needle plate setting knob to the R position. Re-engage the cutting blade. Only the right-hand needle is used for rolled hem. Remove the left-hand needle and thread. Set the stitch length dial at R. Set the lower looper pre-tension slider to the rolled hem position. Fine-tuning of the tension dials may be required depending on the fabric and thread being used. Place the edge to be sewn under the presser foot and sew. For a closer satin stitch, adjust the stitch length dial towards 1. For a more open stitch, adjust the stitch length dial towards 2. A wide variety of threads, such as woolly nylon, metallic and variegated threads can be used in the upper looper to give a more decorative finish. To sew a narrow hem, lower the knife and set the needle plate setting knob to the rolled hem position R. Re-engage the knife. Your standard tension settings should be needle tension 3, upper looper tension 3, lower looper tension 3. But you may need to vary these settings depending on the type of fabric and thread being used. For a narrow hem, decorative threads can be used in both the upper and lower loopers, giving a reversible finish. Pin tucks are used as a decorative finish, for example on the front of a blouse or on a camisole.